Hello, sir.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, sir. We are good. How are you?
Great, great, great. Happy Makar Sankranti to all of you, all of us.
Happy Makar Sankranti.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Hello.
you, sir.
Good
Same to
morning,
you.
sir.
Do you make some tilgul or any other things like lahoris and all those things?
Yes, I have made till good,
Okay, wow.
although it did not turn out to be so good, but I made.
No, I think in US we get normally polished there, and the dark tail which we use in Maharashtra and all, they are basically in very stronger taste. So you really feel kind of lighter on taste kind of scenario. I can understand.
Yeah.
Yes. So okay, let me rename these things. Okay, okay. So who all are tried basically the Excel? What we discussed last time.
Shit.
I got email from Lina ma'am. She's not well, so she'll be a listener. That's what she said. But yeah, and I got one another. I believe एक minute, let me pull out. Uh, Give me a minute. Uh, okay, let it be, no problem. So anybody worked on that Excel thing?
Um, no, sir. I completely missed. Can you tell me what was the assignment? I don't even remember what I had to do.
Oh man, we were basically trying to use Excel to generate something like expense report or generate something like we
Oh,
basically
okay.
trying
Yes, yes.
to
We have to make those charts, na pie
write
charts and bar
charts, yeah,
graphs.
charts and the expense report kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, have you worked on the chart? Have you try to do it with Excel, whatever you have?
I have not tried.
Anybody else?
I try to watch those videos with the
Uh-huh.
tips and all that. So
Okay.
I have ideas how you can make a chart.
Okay, great. I means have you done before, right?
Yes, I did.
Good morning, sir.
Great, great. Okay, so we had look at essential Excel shortcut. Those key how to add row, column, delete. We have seen what is row, what is column, how we can basically what do you mean by record? How can you refer a record, right? And basically Excel is used to collect data, synchronize it with the options you choose during the whatever proposal or during whatever the business vision you're trying to convert into a solution, right? So that's progress we need to this support from the Excel, and I believe Excel charts are the best way to present it in a most beautiful fashion. There are around 8 to 9 different charts available, and Microsoft keeps adding charts as and when there are need. There are quite a few add-ons also, so you can go to some organizations who have developed some charts, and you can add it to those also in what you can say in your Excel as an add-on, and then you can try those chart as well, right? uh, this is overall if we try to build something like expenses, and this is what I believe I try to put out some bar chart. It really clearly give me an idea of what I'm trying to do, and how I'm trying to present, and so on and so forth. So it's really good pictorial representation of our options which we choose, right? Now let's go a step ahead and try to understand how do we present in terms of modified data or data coming from the web service data coming from some website, how to create and represent in a most what you can say dynamic way, or try to summarize everything rather than showing table to all our dignitaries whenever we try to present for solutions and options, right? So pivot table is kind of next step to the chart. And what we'll try to do, we'll try to understand how pivot tables are used. Okay, these are like kind of putting a summarized view. Okay, and these are extensively used in Excel, because we were trying to understand or trying to build a kind of a movie trailer with whatever options we have studied, whatever R&D we have done. Like in our example, as we normally discuss, me being working as an analyst with Infosys and trying to present options to the State Farm business heads, so that whatever iris scanner I can choose, Philips, Sony. Philips is like $100, Sony is like $400. Why I should go for Philips? Why I should go for Sony? So there are some pros and cons. Sony cost is really high, almost 4 times. So there are certain functionality which really great with Sony. Philips couldn't really do very light blue types of eyes scanning correctly, because the color depth is quite not present there. So it's really difficult. So if you have very high end camera, you need a high end camera for such eyes. So you have something like Sony scanner, but yes, you need to pay higher. So what we do, we build a combination within our solution. Like for a given set of 4 or 6 gates, I'll have one Sony or two Sony scanner and 4 to 5 Philips scanner, depending on the cost layman's, depending on the layouts of the office of the entry, and so on and so forth. So that's how I devise these things. And these things I present it to client, present it to development team as well, so that we could really leverage what you can say work ahead, or try to solve the business problem as early as possible, and try to be there, try to be suggestive, try to understand the domain in depth, try to give the solution a finite idea. That's the overall thought process we are talking here, right? And I can understand these are a bit kind of cryptic. If you worked on chart, then pivot tables will come easily to you, but you need to really practice it. Nobody will ask in the interview, so this is not for the current, but whenever you need, and believe me, I'll be there to work with you whenever you're on a job, and if you need to have a pivot table, so please don't worry on those scenarios. Just try to take it as an what we can do. So try to think it from that part. Try to think it as in what Excel presents us. Excel is a really great tool. Microsoft Word is also a great tool. We will also learn Microsoft Word in in depth, so that we can have HLDs of the world. We can we've seen the use case diagram we have drawn in Microsoft Word, right? So we know there's something called word chart, or these are all additions which they were done after they've created these products, right? Even for the Excel, the pivot tables got added, I think around 95, 92 those times, and then they took it like a storm. Believe me, the presentation takes to a next level with a pivot table. Okay, I think we've seen a couple of minutes of pivot tables in our last class. Let's try to have a look at it, and then we'll have a question and answer, and then we'll try to plot a pivot table. Okay, let's have a look at that video. Where's that? Oh, no, okay, this is part one. Let me stop it. I paused it, right? So stop share again, and enter. Okay.
Welcome to Excel Campus. My name is John, and this is the first in a series of videos about pivot tables. So I want to introduce you to my friend Andy. Andy is new on the job, and he has been asked by his boss to create some reports and ultimately a dashboard for an upcoming presentation. All Andy was given is this giant sheet of data and a list of reports that his boss needs. Although he's excited about the challenge, Andy is wondering how he's going to turn this data into a nice-looking dashboard. Of course, he wants to save the day and become the superhero of the office. So what Andy really needs is to learn how to use pivot tables. In this video series, I'm going to show you how we're going to solve Andy's problem. We're going to take this sheet of data and turn it into a nice-looking interactive dashboard using pivot tables and pivot charts. We are going to build each of these reports using pivot tables and then bring it all together to create the dashboard. And don't worry if you think this looks complicated. Pivot tables are very easy to use and don't require any complex formulas or VBA macros, just simple drag and drop. Throughout this video series, I'm also going to be showing you an add-in I developed called PivotPal. PivotPal makes it easier to work with some aspects of pivot tables and will save you a lot of time. But you don't need to have PivotPal to create these pivot tables and dashboards. Everything you need is already built into Excel. All right, so in this first video, we're going to cover the basics of building a pivot table. I'm going to show you how to create this pivot table here that's a summary of revenue by sales rep, and also this pivot chart over here, which just displays that information visually. So we know that Andy has this set of data to work with. This is really all he's been given. And this is what we're going to use to create our pivot tables. This will be considered our source data. And before you start building a pivot table, it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the source data, especially if you haven't seen it before. So this data was exported.
This is what they call data, right? These are records. Means if you see at, row number 4, it's a record. So all these records make a data. And previously, business analysts used to have something like MS SQL. Means they used to write database command to get these report outs. Now we have Excel, which you can do these kind of really fancy looking reports by just a couple of clicks. And that's why this is really important. And this replaces the database programming, which was required for a BA at a given time. So this is crucial. Just try to understand and try to play around. That's what I'll suggest you. Okay. What we did last time, we did something like home expense sheet. You can do office expense. You can do whatever you like. It should be a data collected at least 3 or 4 rows. Try to collect these data and try to make inference out of it. Okay. I'll really give a free hand to you in terms of understanding or making that data sensible, right? And try to convert the data completely into what you can say managerial language or managerial report. What does managerial report means? It's a summarized view, right? So summarized view, like we normally refer it as a dashboards. So dashboards are basically just a couple of sentences which it can be labeled in a red, green, yellow kind of scenario, so that you know the gist of the sentence, what I'm trying to solve, what are the problem I'm trying to basically get the attention to as well, right? So these kind of scenarios are important as far as BA goes, because you keep presenting, right? As in BA, I go to meetings, I present options for the given solution, and then try to do these research. So building solution from a business vision or converting business vision to a requirements to a solution, that's what BA does. And these are all tools support me for these decision making. And these are a kind of auditory fact as well. I'll keep using this word. Auditory facts is a kind of facts and figure which we have collected from his research or his or her research, and try to present in the most constructive, positive way. That's how we do. And we're going to learn that step by step. Okay. So please don't worry. Please don't look at the size of the sheet. It can be just, 8 row and, 2-3 columns. They're trying to impress us in terms of, using bigger sheets, because that makes more sense whenever you, start working in office. So if you have something like employee address database, now you want to just find a couple of employees throughout the globe. And, in those kind of scenario, we can use pivot table. So how to enable such, database, how to enable such data, which is there in Excel, to pull out some really, what you can say, sorted out results for dashboard. That's how, the pivot tables works. Okay, let's have a look. If any question, just, say it loud, and, we can discuss those points.
From our general ledger software. And basically it contains order details for December. So each row in the data here contains information for specific order. So you can see we have the order date, some customer information here, the salesperson.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am.
Sir, how we are gonna take the data from the database to the Excel?
No, normally nowadays we just have the data in Excel itself. Means people have something called CVS, if you heard of it. CVS are the files which are normally can be pulled out of any database. CVS is a uniform sheet format, uniform, what you can say.
CVS is a repository, right?
Yeah, it's a repository, very rightly said, but it's a text-based repository. If I may use, it's a tab separated text repository. That's how you technically refer it. So I'll not go into much detail, but every database, every table can be converted to CS with couple of clicks or couple of commands. So all these database guys, they can give you these Excel sheet. That's how the work is done nowadays, because we don't expect business analyst to a database developer or database admin, right? So what we do, we convert the database for a BA with the specified records and give it in a CVS or a Excel sheet, and this is how it looks, because database are normally really
So
bigger, right?
CVS, what are CVS? CVS are just like Excel sheet. Uh,
It's
the
yeah, it's
text.
Excel sheet. Excel sheet is basically a text-based Excel sheet.
Okay, CVS is a text-based Excel sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
So they don't have
CVS is
rows and
called file
columns.
format. Yeah. If you go to Google and search for CVS file format, you'll get all those details. It's one of the most oldest file format. Means after what I can say, I think in 1940s, 50s, where we were trying to create these, files from rather than just having the computer, store everything in the memory. We were trying to write this thing on a, permanent magnetic media. At that time, we have discovered something like files, and then we discussed something like sheets. So files are basically continuous statements, paras. Okay, sheets are basically, as we discuss, column and rows. So row is a record, column is normally type of data or category of data, right? Could you understand that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So all these CVS file formats are basically a tabular format. So these tables, like we can see whatever in our screen, right? So these are the file format which are shared across different operating system, be it a Mac, be it Windows, be it a Unix, or be it a bigger server, cloud server, and all those server. They understand CVS in depth. Excel is normally understood by Windows platform, which is almost 75% plus reach across the globe. So all other, whenever you in Excel, if you say, export, it gives you a option of exporting as a CVS. And CVS is readable on Mac as well. Means if you're using Macintosh can read CVS in other softwares also. But if you are Excel, then you can use XLS as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't want to confuse you too much, but these are the different file. These are the two basic file format. A text file means you just keep writing, right? The email is basically a text. So those kind of scenario. But the SRS is basically a text file. So you just create statements, paragraph, and then the tables, which we can include in Microsoft Word as well. But these are normally what you can say tabular format or sheet format. That's how they referred in normal IT word. Okay. Does
Okay.
that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Let's go ahead. Thanks.
Shipping information as I scroll over. And we also have some product information and then some information about the price of the product, the revenue, quantity, all that stuff. So it's good information. The other thing you want to do is make sure that your data is in a tabular format. And that just means that you have a row of headers here at the top of the data set. And each of these headers describes the column of data below. And I've provided a checklist so you can go over this in more detail. The other things you want to look out for is that you want to make sure there's no blank columns within your header row here and no blank rows within your data set, especially if you have a column of dates. You want to make sure there's no blank rows or cells in your date column. You also want to look out for any merged cells. A lot of times when you're exporting data, the software will automatically merge some cells together. And you want to make sure you unmerge all the cells. So once your data is cleaned up, and this data looks pretty good, we go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, and then click the Pivot Table button. And that'll bring up this Create Pivot Table window. And basically, it's asking us to select the table or range. Now you can see that Excel has automatically detected the range for me, and that's because I had a cell selected inside the pivot table, or I'm sorry, inside the data set before I clicked the Create Pivot Table button. So as long as you do that, select a cell inside the range, click this button, and Excel will automatically detect the range for you. If it doesn't, you can just click this blue button over here and go and select your range. The next step is that we want to choose where we're going to put the pivot table. In this case, we'll put it on a new worksheet. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And now you'll see that's automatically added a new sheet to our workbook here and created this pivot table area. You'll also notice over on the right side that this pivot table fields list has appeared. And this is basically the window we're going to use to create the pivot table. So here's a list of all the fields in our data set here. And then down below is the areas that we can drag those fields into to create a pivot table report. So the first thing I'm going to do is find that salesperson field, and here it is here. I'm going to drag that into the rows area. So left click and hold, drag it into the rows area of the pivot table and drop it there. And you'll notice now that in the pivot table, it's listed our sales reps in the rows areas of pivot table. So each row contains our sales rep name. Now I want to add the revenue to this report as well, so I can get a summary of revenue. So I'm going to find this revenue field here in the field list, and then drag it into the values area of the pivot table. When I drag it into the values area and drop it there, you'll notice that Excel has automatically calculated the sum of revenue for each rep that's listed in the rows area of the pivot table. So this is really the power and the magic of the pivot table. It is automatically calculated the sum of revenue for each rep just almost instantly as we drag the field into the values area.
Like in our chart, we have to add those things, right? Or we need to basically take it entity by entity. Means one cell, there's a record, and I need to plot those things, right? Now, whatever I'm doing here, I'm basically calculated it previously, and then building charts and building those what you can say more interesting looking results pulled out of such big database, right? So that's how it works. So the important part is whatever Excel has the power, the muscle power, we are trying to leverage to present our data concisely what we want to present, rather than giving a big table. This is how we do it normally within for our presentations and those scenarios. Okay, could you understand the criticalness of these things? Means if I have something like collected all the data points within expense for my household, right, for the last year, the sheet can look like this big. So I've spent on, let's say, cable, gas, electric, petrol, gas, even stationaries, vegetables, milk, and blah 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 stuff. I can go to a categorize these data, these sales, on the basis of what are the items I have purchased, when I purchased, and then I try to analyze how I'm spending in terms of weeks, days, months, and how it looks whenever I need to extrapolate these things. So if I understand my last year's spending, I can really plan my next year's spending with a trend analysis, right? This is how we do. This is how we work. So if you have the history, you can extrapolate these history to a trend analysis. Let's go step by step rather than overshadowing us. Let's have a look at this.
And it's a good idea to get an understanding of what actually happens there. So let me try and explain this a little better. So here we can see Andrew has sales of 12,368 here in the pivot table. And basically what the pivot table has done, so I go back to the data tab, I'm going to filter the salesperson field here for Andrew. So we're just seeing the sales that Andrew's done. And you can see here that he's done 8 sales in the month of December. Now if I go over to the rows column, and I'm just going to select these revenue numbers here, you can see here's our sum of revenue of 12,368 for Andrew. So basically the pivot table has done this filter and calculation for us. It's basically filtered the data set for each rep, each unique item in that field, and then calculated the sum of revenue for each rep. So it's a very powerful tool because with just a few clicks, you can see that we've automatically created this nice summary report from our data set. And I also have a pivot diagram here that just kind of shows you where each of these areas are within a standard pivot table. So you can see this is kind of a standard looking report. We have our sales rep here at the left side. We have quarters across the top, and then the sum of revenue here in the middle section. And up here we have the year, a filter for the year. So these are basically the different areas that you could drag fields into in the pivot table, and each of them displays information a little differently. So throughout this video series, I'll explain how each of these areas within the pivot table works. Okay, so let's continue building out our pivot table. So probably the first thing you notice is that these numbers are not formatted. When we drug the revenue field into the values area, it did not format those numbers. So we want to format those. And the easiest way to do that is you just right click on any cell in the values area there, and then go to value field settings. That'll bring up this value field settings for the revenue field, sum of revenue. And we're going to click on the number format button. That'll bring up the format cells dialog. This one you're probably familiar with. I'm just going to choose currency, no decimals, click OK, and then click OK here. And you can see now that our numbers are formatted and they look a little nicer. The next thing I'm going to do is sort this information. So I want to put the top performing rep at the top of the list here. So basically, I'm just going to select any cell in the values area and right click and then go to sort and sort largest to smallest. And now that's sorted our list here from largest to smallest. So we can see our top performing rep, which is Nancy, at the top of the list, and then our bottom performing rep, which is Jan, down at the bottom. So this now gives us some really good information. We can kind of see who's doing well and maybe who struggled this month or for some reason didn't do as well. And I'm more of a visual person, so I want to see this information in a chart as well. So as long as I have any cell selected in the pivot table, go up to the Analyze tab or the Options tab and click Pivot Chart. And that'll bring up this chart window. And I want to insert a bar chart. Click OK. So now we've automatically created a bar chart here that it just allows us to visualize this information. And I'm going to quickly show you how we can clean this up, because the default chart formatting out of the box it's kind of ugly, honestly. So we're going to clean this up a bit. So the first thing I typically do is just hide all these field buttons. These field buttons allow you to apply filters, but we don't really need that for our dashboard. So I'm going to hide those. You'll also notice that these names here are in the opposite order of what they are here on the pivot table. So we need to reverse the order of this. So I'm going to right click here, go to Format Access. That'll bring up this Format Access window. It looks a little different in Excel 2010, but the options are the same. Go to Access Options, and then I'm going to check this box, Categories in Reverse Order. And that's going to reverse the order of these categories here so they match what's on the page. I'm going to close that. The other thing I want to do is, well, I'm going to get rid of these labels here. So I'm just going to left click to select those, hit the delete key on the keyboard. I'm also going to get rid of the legend. So click that, delete on the keyboard. And I want to get rid of these vertical lines. So I'm going to left click on those, delete. And then I also want to add some labels here. So in Excel 2013, you can just click on this plus button, go to data labels. That'll add our data labels there. I'm going to make my plot area a little smaller so the data label doesn't overlap the bar. And now I also want to make these bars wider. So to do that, I'm going to again right click on the bar, right click, go to Format Data Series. That'll bring up the Format Data Series window. And we're looking in the series options, we're looking for a gap width. And if I just make that smaller, that'll make the gap between the bars smaller and make the bars bigger. So now we can see that we have some bigger looking bars, and this is starting to look pretty nice. Of course, we want to add a title here. So we're going to go sales by rep for December 2014, like that. So now with just a few clicks, we have this great looking chart that allows us to visually see our report here, our sales by rep for the month of December. So hopefully you've kind of seen the power of the pivot table here, and it's not really that scary of an item. It's actually very easy to use and extremely powerful, and allows you to quickly summarize and visualize your information. All right, so I want to quickly show you how you can use PivotPal to create this same pivot table report, and how it makes it a little faster to do so. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out this report so we can start fresh. And to delete fields out of your pivot table, you can go over here to the pivot table fields list and just left click and drag them out of the area until you see that X next to the mouse icon, and then let go, and that'll delete the field out of the area right there. So now we have this blank pivot table, and I'm just going to go up to the Excel Campus tab on the ribbon and click the PivotPal button. Once you install PivotPal, you'll see this Excel Campus tab up here. And basically, PivotPal is an add-in that I've developed that makes it faster and easier to work with some aspects of pivot tables. So you notice one thing when we were building the pivot table, we basically were scrolling through this list over here to try and find our field that we wanted to add to one of these areas. And PivotPal has a built-in search that makes this much faster. So if I want to find salesperson, I can just start typing salesperson. You'll see as I start typing, the results are narrowed down. I can choose salesperson here, hit enter. That'll select it down here in the field list for me. And then I can use these buttons or keyboard shortcuts to place the selected field in the area of the pivot table. So I want to put salesperson in rows, and now it's just added to rows. I also want to put revenue into my values area. This time I use a keyboard shortcut Alt-V, and that'll put the revenue in my values area very quickly. The other nice feature of PivotPal is that it automatically formats the values area for you. So you notice when we added this revenue field, I'll just go ahead and delete the values area out. When we add the revenue field into the values area using the field list, the numbers are not formatted. You can see that they're not formatted. We have to take a few extra steps to format them. However, when we do this with PivotPal, again, I'll add the revenue to the values area. This with PivotPal, the numbers automatically formatted, and that's because PivotPal detects the source formatting. So there's a formatting drop down here in PivotPal, and it detects the source formatting of the field. So if I go to the data set, and this button allows you to jump back to the data, you can see our revenue field has this currency format already applied to it. And PivotPal will automatically format that field for you like that. And if your source data is not formatted, or you want to change the format, you can do that very quickly with PivotPal as well. You can just select from any of these predefined options here and format the values there very quickly. And of course, you can change this list here and add your custom formats to it as you like. So in the next video, we're going to...
So, I know this looks a bit complicated, but once you try doing that thing, or once you, try to understand how we can, present the best way. And from this, big data bit record, rather than learning MS SQL, this looks really, easier to understand, right? And as I said, these might not come up on an interview, but overall, what we're trying to do, we're trying to go to a level where we're trying to understand how to present data in the best business dashboard way, or present data in a summarized way. Even the use case diagram what we draw, we normally try to present in a summarized way. So we normally go with a single complex functionality and try to draw those diagrams. The HLDs of the world also, we try to summarize, we try to print it there as well. Okay. Who wants to have a next step? There's a video of next. Let's have a look at that as well. So we'll try to understand. I'll share this video with you. So try to play around with this. And I would really request, a humble request, try to build some chart to have at least one single pivot table. Just try to play around with it so that you know the tool. So if anybody asks what pivot table do, yeah, it's a give you a summarized view of a big data. That's what the pivot tables are, and it's a dynamically updated. So whenever the data changes, the pivot tables get updated, because those numericals directly coming from the sheet, directly coming from the database. The sheet is normally referred as a database. Row is my record, my column is my category of data. Okay, are we clear with that? Any questions for me at this moment? I know this looks a bit difficult, but overall what we this is the most difficult things in terms of or as much as near we can go as in programming. There's no programming after this. There are more of conceptual concept building, solution building. But if you look at the overall this Excel is going to help us from learning something like MySQL, or learning something like really cryptic language to build our reports, or to get inference pulled out of a database. That's what it means. So pulling out inference or a summarized view or a dashboard out of a database to present it to dignitaries, so that I can effectively present it with a concrete auditory proof. That's how I put it in my interview, in my discussions and all, right? So let's have a look at the second step of pivot tables. And these are the one of the few really greatest example this guy have presented, and he's doing it really good. So let's try to understand. And please feel free to ask questions.
My name is John, and this is the second video in a series on pivot tables and dashboards. In the first video, we met Andy and learned about a project his boss has given him. He needs to take this sheet of data and turn it into a nice looking dashboard. We learned how to create our first pivot table and pivot chart. In this video, we're going to create a few more pivot tables and learn how they can help us answer questions about our data. I will explain how we can use the different calculation types to investigate the source data and how to update your pivot tables with more data. And finally, I will demonstrate how PivotPal helps make some of these processes faster and easier. All right, so this is the pivot table and pivot chart that we created in the first video. And I now want to build out some additional pivot tables and charts that we will ultimately add to our dashboard. So instead of inserting a brand new pivot table, I'm just going to make a duplicate copy of this sheet and then modify the new sheet. So to make a duplicate copy of the sheet, the easiest way to do that is to just left click and hold down on the sheet like you're going to drag it over to the right, then hold down the control key on the keyboard and let go of the left mouse button. That'll make a duplicate copy of the sheet. So now we can just modify this pivot table. Our other pivot table is still intact. And the other nice advantage of this is we don't have to format the chart again. The chart's already formatted for us, and it will update as we make changes to the pivot table. So now I want to see a report that shows my sales by product category. So I'm going to go ahead and remove salesperson out of the rows area here. You'll see that's updated the pivot table. So now the only thing in the pivot table is the sum of revenue, and that shows up here and in our chart as well. And now I want to add the product category into my pivot table. So I'm going to find category here in the list, drag it into the rows area. And now that's added all of our product categories here in the rows area. And I also...
Could you see the difference? Now he was trying to present how much how much each salesperson have done the sales. Now you just click, and you change the complete report to the product category. So what different type of product the organization or the company is selling and how much revenue is generated out of it. Means this report, if you have database and a programmer, at least take a couple of weeks to present this way. Excel can get it done within just few clicks. That's the beauty of Excel. Yeah, but yeah, there are some restrictions to Excel as well. Let's not see Excel as in God, but still some of these simple things you can do, and that's how we are trying to leverage one of these complex rules. I'll not say it's really easy, but yes, we need to get some what you can say hands-on experience, and then understand the criticalness or the importance of this changing the overall representation of a data in a summarized or a dashboard format. That's what it is doing it for us, right? Any question for me at this moment? Okay, let's go ahead.
I want to sort this, so I'm going to right click here, go to sort, largest to smallest. So now we can quickly see that this company is selling a lot of beverages. That's their top performing category. Then dried fruits and nuts and sauces. So those are really their top 3 performing categories. And I actually want to limit this list to just the top 10 categories. So we can quickly do that with the pivot table. I'm just going to click on the filter button here in the rows area. And then I'm going to go to value filters and choose top 10. And that'll bring up this window, and it's basically going to ask us what we want to show. In this case, we want to show the top 10 items by sum of revenues. It's already set up for us. I'm just going to click OK. And now that'll just filter this list for the top 10 items. And of course, you'd want to rename the title of this chart and this sheet as well. So now I'm going to, again, make a duplicate copy of the sheet so we can start building out more pivot tables. So again, left click, drag over, hold the control key, and release. I'll make a duplicate copy. And I want to show you some different calculation types that the pivot table can do, because so far we've only been dealing with the sum of revenue. First thing I'm going to do though is clear out this filter, because remember we applied this top 10 filter. So I'm just going to click the clear filter button, and that's going to again show us all the categories here. So now I want to start answering some more questions about my category sales. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the unit price here in the values area, and that's going to give me a sum of unit price, which actually isn't all that interesting of a calculation because there's different products within these categories. So I actually want to see the average unit price. So I'm going to right click here, go to value field settings. And now from this window, there's some different metric options. And I want to calculate the average instead of the sum. So I'm just going to click average and click OK. And now that's showing us the average unit price now. And you can see that for beverages, our average unit price is around $23. Jams and preserves is a little higher at 43. So what that means is our volume for beverages is probably higher. And to see that, we could just take the quantity field and put it in the values area. And now we have a sum of quantity. And of course, we can see here that we sold a lot of beverages, 763. And that's just about the highest out of all the product categories. The other thing that might be interesting to note is how many orders we sold for each of these categories. So again, I'm going to take the quantity field and drag it into the values area. And instead of sum, I actually want the count. So I'm going to go to value field settings, and now I'm going to choose count from this list, hit OK. And so now that's showing me the count of orders, or the count of rows in my data set for each of these product categories. And the other thing that kind of sticks out here is this blank row. So we have a row of product categories that are blank, and you can see there's eight rows basically of blank product categories. So let's see what's going on with these, because the boss is definitely going to ask about that when he sees this report. So I'm going to filter the category field here for blanks. I'm just going to go down to the bottom, filter for blanks, and that's basically showing us that here's these 8 blank rows that we're seeing in the pivot table, and we can see there's no product name here. There are some shipping fees, so this might be some kind of shipping fee, and we'd obviously want to ask our billing department about that, but for now I'll just put shipping fee in the category so we at least know what it is. So with those selected, I'm going to use the Alt semicolon shortcut to select visible cells. Then I'm going to type shipping fee in here, and now I'm going to hold down the Control key on the keyboard and hit Enter, and that'll fill that value or formula in all the selected cells. Control Enter does that. So now if we go back to the pivot table, we'll see it still says blank here because the pivot table needs to be refreshed. And you can do that with any cell selected in the pivot table. You can go to the Analyze or Options tab. There's a refresh button right here. You can also right click the pivot table and click refresh, and then the keyboard shortcut is Alt F5. So I just refreshed there, and now we can see we have our shipping fee down here, and we have a total of 8 of those. So that makes a little more sense since there's no revenue and no quantity coming in for shipping fees. Okay, so I want to show you one of my other favorite calculations. I'm just going to make a copy of the page here. I'm going to remove a few of these fields here, and I'm just going to keep sum of revenue. A lot of times you ask the question, okay, we have revenue for beverages of $17,452. What is that as a percentage of our total revenue? And you can quickly answer that with a pivot table. So I'm going to add our revenue field in the values area again, and that's just created sum of revenue. This time I'm going to right click, go to value field settings, and show values as, this tab here. And now we're going to choose calculation as a percentage of grand total. Click OK. And you can see now that's automatically created that calculation percentage of grand total. So we can now see that beverages makes up almost 25% of our revenue. And we can see these top 3 selling categories make up a big chunk of our revenue, over 50%. So over half of our revenue, 56%, is coming from these top 3 categories here. So then you might ask the question, okay, who's selling in these categories? And we can quickly answer that as well. So if I find my salesperson field here, I'm just going to drag it into the rows area. And now that's automatically added our salesperson. It's basically lists all the salespeople that has sold in this specific category. So for each category, it's telling you who has sold in that specific category. And this again provides some interesting metrics because now we can see that Nancy is responsible for selling almost over 10% or 11% of our sales in beverages for the company. So that's a pretty big number. Another interesting way to look at this is that I'm going to take the sum of revenue out of the pivot table and now the salesperson over to columns here. And basically what that's done is it's now listed each of our salespeople across the top here of the pivot table. That's all of our salespeople. And then down the left side, we have our categories. So now you can kind of see which salespeople are selling in each category. So you can just kind of look down the list and see everything that Andrew's doing, which product categories he's selling in, which ones and are selling in, and so on. So as you can see with the pivot table, you could really just slice and dice all day long and do different pivots of your data to find trends and analyze it further. Okay, so I'm now going to show you how we can add more data to our data set. So far in this data set, we just have order details for December. But when January rolls around, we're going to want to add that data into this model and then update our pivot table so we can see the data for January as well. So I've been sent the order details for January here. And basically, I'm just going to copy it into my data set. So I'm just going to select the first cell here. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-End on the keyboard. That'll select all my cells there. I'm going to hit Control-C to copy those. And now I'm going to go over to my December file. I'm going to hold down the Control key and press the down arrow on the keyboard. That'll take me to the end of this range here. And I'm just going to hit Control-V to paste my data right in there. So now I have January data pasted right below my December data. If I go over to my pivot table, the pivot table has not actually been updated yet to include that new data. So we have to update the range of the source data that we first specified when we built the table. So you select any cell in the pivot table here, go to the Analyze or the Options tab on the ribbon, and we're going to choose this Change Data Source button. And that's going to bring up this window, and you can see right now our data range is only going to row 68. So if I scroll down to the bottom here, we now need to extend it all the way to row 83. So you can type row 83 in here. Another little trick you can do is if you just select any cell inside the table here and hit Control-A on the keyboard, that's going to basically select all. Control-A will select all, it'll select everything in our data range. And so now we've selected everything down to row 83. Click OK, and now you can see that once we did that, the pivot table has been refreshed and updated with the new data, and we have a new total sales of 89,000. All right, so I now want to show you some features of PivotPal that make it faster.
Any question for me? Could we understand the criticalness of an typical shop or company having its sales revenue report analyzed by within these few clicks? We are just trying to understand the pivot tables. I know it's a bit technical. We are trying to analyze the data. We are trying to present the data in a dashboard fashion. Like what are the products, how much revenue they are bringing up to us, what are the sales representative who are working on those products, their category, how much each of these sales representative have earned the revenue, how much this each and every product category is helping my business to grow. So these kind of things which are very crucial for a business, right? So if you start working for, let's say, State Farm sells insurance. So we can have these reports like which type of insurance is performing the best, which can generate really great profit margins, which is more of a liability, so that the cost is bigger than the actual spendings, and so on and so forth. So these way we can analyze these database on just few clicks. And believe me, this is really crucial when you start working, when you go on a job. You might need to pull out some such reports, try to analyze them, try to present it within the given span, so that all the dignitaries are with you based on these auditory reports. And we'll do it step by step. Even if you're working in a financial domain, if you looking to work in a bank, this number makes more sense, because there you need to really work it through how much the efficiency is to be leveraged, how much the efficiency is to be calibrated to, how I can bring better processes. So if you go to a level of a strategic analysis, you have to use this report more prominently. To start with, you might not use a pivot table for the first 6 odd months, but if you, then I am there to help you out. Please don't worry. But I am again request you, try to plot down a couple of charts, try to plot down at least one pivot table. Just try to put out some inference of whatever you worked on a chart. So if you have worked on a chart, like Lina ma'am have worked on her establishment's expense report. So we can really pull out some good, inference out of those things with this pivot table. So if you worked on a chart, then we might discuss in our next class how to get inference or how to create these pivot tables on that. But please put some efforts so that we know how this Excel can help us in day-to-day life as well. Means job, yeah, that's what we are targeting to, but we can leverage such a good tool which we have lying in our computer, so that we can plan our expenses really well. Believe me, that's how we normally do. Even all these tax returns and all, these are basically based on pivot table. So if you have something like HR block helping you to file tax return, how the executive do, they use something like pivot table within their Excel sheet. They enter your data and they'll get how much tax you're liable to pay, how much returns you can get from IRA, and so on and so forth. So this is how this Excel is really important. It's help us out on in our day-to-day life as well. Anybody have any questions for me at this moment? Okay, let's go ahead. I believe nobody's talking today. I'm really missing Lina ma'am.
Easier to work with your source data when you're building out your pivot tables. So if you remember, we were just investigating this blank down here and these 8 rows that made up that blank. And to do that, we went over to the data tab, and then we found the category field here and filtered for blanks. And basically that's what we had to do to find those blank rows. Well, PivotPal has a feature that makes this a lot faster and easier. So I'm going to open the PivotPal window.
Now, PivotPal is an add-on, as I told you. It's not normally doesn't come with Excel, but it's, I think, freely available, or I don't know how much they charge. I've never used PivotPal, but yes, these are the specific add-ons they do. It's like pre-calculated Excel sheet which they give it to you, and you can use it for a specific purpose. So if you join some organizations like State Farm, or banking app banking organizations, they have certain pre-formatted Excel sheet which you normally use, and these are basically have these enabled with all these add-ons which they've needed, or they've customized these things by the programmers and by the Excel experts. So that's how we leverage this Excel with these add-ons. Okay, let's try to understand from this guy
here. And basically, the PivotPal has this filter source button that will do all this for us with the click of a button. So I'm just going to select a cell in the values area. In this case, I'm going to select that 8, and then I'm going to click the filter source button. And that'll automatically filter our data source for the category of blank. And you can see it's done that here and filtered for blanks, and then showing us those 8 rows. So this will save you a lot of time when you're investigating your data, especially if you have a pivot table like this that's a little more complex with more fields in it. So let's say that we wanted to investigate this number here, this 5,114, which is a sales for Maria for beverages for the West region. So if I just click the filter source button now, that's filtered my source data for the category of beverages for salesperson Maria for the region of West. And it's also automatically selected the revenue column there, so we can tie out our number. Here's 5,114. And again, it's just basically applying those filters to the data set here. So we can see here's our filter for beverages. If we want to jump over to salesperson, select salesperson in the field list, hit the go to data button, and that'll take us over to the salesperson field. And again, it's shown us that it's applied that filter there. Another nice feature of PivotPal is it allows you to build out your pivot table from your source data sheet. So I'm going to hit Alt-A-C on the keyboard to clear the filters. And now a lot of times what you'll end up doing is you'll end up flipping back and forth between your pivot table and your source data sheet because you're trying to add a field, but you're not necessarily sure of the name of the field. You know the data that's inside that field, but you're not necessarily sure of how it's named. So you end up flipping back and forth between these. Well, with PivotPal, as you can just go to the source data sheet and select any cells. And I select these cells, they're automatically selected in the PivotPal window for you. So you can see I'm just selecting different cells here in the data set, and those fields are then selected for you in PivotPal. And then all you have to do is click one of these buttons to add it to the pivot table. So maybe I want to put this ship name on rows. I can do that by just simply clicking the field and then clicking a button. I'm going to put my region in my columns there. Okay, so I'm going to click region in the data source, click the columns button, and now I can go back to my pivot and see what that looks like. So now we've start building out our pivot table, but we're doing it from the source data sheet. And this just will save you a lot of time, because otherwise you spend time just flipping back and forth. And the built-in field list is not available on the source data sheet. So this field list that you typically use to build out your pivot table, that's not available on the source data sheet like it is with the Pivot Pal window. So the next video, we're finally going to...
So this is what we need to basically do in terms of trying to understand or trying to get in terms of pulling the what you can say database for a typical data, or trying to build an inference out of big database and try to present it in a least or summarized way, right? Now this is what we have to use as an Excel. So please work on these tools, work on this data analysis tool, so that we can present it effectively. Just try to pull down some charts, right? Really good looking charts which will help you out. And I'll share these last two sessions within a group so you can have a look at it. And next time let's try to present what we have done in terms of chart. Okay, for pivot tables, I can understand and we can have a look at it afterwards, no problem. Whenever we have last workshop we will do pivot tables, but right now try to at least do something or try to play around with those charts, right? Do you want me to revise the charts for you again?
Yes, sir.
Do you want me to revise chart? Now could you please speak louder?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll revise the chart again, no problem. So say so means there's nothing wrong in revising. It really helps out, because these are the things which we're going to require in terms of our day-to-day life, or our overall working or presenting data with these presenting this with the dignitaries, with the project meetings and all, right? Let's try to understand the chart. There's a good video, and I'll play that again for you, so that we can where's that again, let me search for that. That's really, wait a minute. Yes, okay, yes, wait a minute. Stop share, and I'll start share again. Now, why do we use chart, right? These are really good looking summarized view of a data, right? And why we use chart? Because we have to present in a pictorial format. Even HLD, high level diagram, is also picture. Use case diagram is a picture. Why we draw such picture? Because a picture explains 100 and 1,000 words. So you don't have to write pages. If whenever you're trying to present it to a group of people, pictures helps you out a lot, so that you can freely talk, you can freely explain these things, right? So let's try to understand how this chart is going to help me out. Okay, before that we've understood the, I'll just revisit the Excel thing as well. What is row, what is column? Let's go over it so that we could understand. Let me share the Excel for you. Where, okay, I have to stop the share and I had to start the share with Excel. Let's try to understand what is what in Microsoft Excel. Now, could you see my Excel screen here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is what is a column. So B is a column. My 1 is a row, 7 is a row, 9 is a row. This row is called record. So database, and this complete sheet is called a database. So I can have let's say serial number. Okay, this I'm just trying to I'm lazy, so I'm want to go really slow, or try to use these abbreviations. That's what I'm trying to do. Now serial number, then I can have name. Let's say I'm trying to have address, or let's say phone book for that matters, right? So I have serial number, name, phone number, and I can have something like so UNTRI, country, let's say, for that matter. So I have a serial number 1, I'll say Ravindra. Then I'll have some data like this, right? So I have some number, no, sorry, no letters, right? So these are the numbers. Then country, these are just letters only. Then I have another friend of mine. His number is something something something, and then he is in US. Then another friend. Oh, sorry. Now this is the wrong thing. Okay. Now, rather than doing this, what I can do, I can pre-format these cells, right? These are the cells, right? So I can pre-format by right-clicking, and there's something called format cells. And in format cell, I can just give a number, and I don't want any decimal places, right? So this I pre-formatted. So if I type letters, see, oh man, why is not formatted? It won't let me enter the characters. I don't know why. Number, no decimal place. So I clicked on cancel, I believe. Why is not giving me error? It should give me error. Okay, it should. I don't know what's wrong with this Excel. So it happens sometimes, but yes. So I can restrict the entry. Even I can have something like pre-formatted date. So how does date works in Excel? We have by default DD Y. This is the normal format. So if I want to put today's date, it's 01 13 2021. This is how I put it, and this is how it get aligned to. Now there are, if I click here, there are various type of formats available in the date. So I can have a day, I can have I can also include time and everything also. But if I pull this day and let's try to pull it around. Now this is what it's called sequential increase. So it took the next day and something like that. So I can have these things effectively planned like that. Now I don't have to enter serial number. I can just pull this thing down, so that for this I can have what you can say sequential increase. These are the some good tools built within Excel, which I can leverage while working with Excel, and that's why we use Excel. Now this is my what I called header row. This is what I called category name. Okay, so I can color it separately, so that I could basically really label it separately from the data. This is my data, this is my category name, this is a record, this is a category type within my database. Does that make sense? Anybody have any
Yes, sir.
confusion now?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, so try to build something like this. Try to build something with your meaningful database, and we'll try to port out a chart based on this, right? Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
let's try to
Mm.
understand how we can draw some charts from this good looking data what we have, right? So let's try to understand that. And there are some 6-7 different charts available. So these are what you can say, column chart, bar chart, line chart. These are really good looking representation of that data with single picture. Okay, and we want to do it because we want to excel in presentation skills as well. This is one of the most crucial crucial element of presentation, that you should have a concise presentation. So one picture, 1,000 word, you can put the picture on a slide and try to explain it, right? And that's how we do it. We will see these things step by step. Okay, let's have a look at this chart thing.
In this video, I'm going to tell you how to make 10 most used charts in Excel. Yes, in one video, you will learn how to make 10 most used charts in Excel. So we'll start with the column chart, bar chart, line chart, pie chart, donut chart, combo chart. This is where it starts getting interesting. Combo chart, tree map chart, Pareto chart, and in the end, I'll tell you how to make smart line chart and smart line column chart. Making charts and graphs in Excel is very, very easy. You just need to know what kind of data you have and what you want to show. So let's start making our chart select your data and go to home. Sorry, go to insert, and from here choose column chart. There are multiple types of column charts. Since this is a simple video, I've done the regular common charts. If you want to know more about these charts, you can go to my website, myinvestor.org, and there are comprehensive videos on these charts. And you are able to create a column chart. You can edit it by changing its name, column chart, like this. The section opens fill, no fill. I'll be explaining this later.
Let's try to do this by ourselves, right? We have created this Excel. Let me share that with you, and then we can try to get a column chart by ourselves. It's not that difficult. It's just simple, click, and we can get it done, right? So let's try to create a sheet of I'll take these names, whatever I have included here. I'll create another sheet. So I'm creating another database. Okay, so I've just copied these names: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's try to have 6 names, any name. So let's have Tom, C-K-Y, Vicky. Okay, SHIV, Shiv. Okay, and let's try to take out my contribution towards let's say if you're trying to collect, let's say, some funds, because we should have a number to analyze, right? So or let's try to have say expenses. Let's try to have EXPN expenses, and let's say I have 3,000 2400. Let's have 4355. I'm just giving any raw numbers here, so that we can just analyze where we stand in terms of expenses, right? And with that, this is the name. I can have the way I have formatted. This is how I normally format. So I'll just say center. I'll select this. I'll say center, so it's look better. No, come on. No, this one. Okay, and then I'll just select these things, and I'll add these what you can say, borders, right? So if I have all borders, this look nice. Now if I want to build a chart, what I'll do, I have to just select these 2 columns, or you can say set of data, right? So I've selected a set of data. I gone here and I'll clicked on insert, and you can see there are various charts available, right? So if I go here, like he said, bar chart or column chart, right? Or let's say column, and there are these good looking chart as well, right? So if I want to use these, let's use this thing. Now what can you let's say, let's change this label to, oh, come on, EXPN expense LYSIS. Okay, so let's LY. Oh man. Okay, what we are trying to do, we are trying to analyze the expenses in dollar. Okay, let's try to label this thing. So how do you format this? I'll say format, and I'll have currency, and dollar. Currency comes by default. Okay, so these are the whatever different expenses these guys have done, right? Now if I want to let's say increase this number, I'll just go and rather than 4, I'll put how much, let's say 6. Let's try to do. So could you see the graphs get automatically updated, because this is a new version. I mean, I think 2013 something. This is a 2013 office. So if you don't have, then you can just click here and you can say refresh, or what he said, there's a refresh, or you can build the chart again, right? You can change the colors as you want. See, there are certain styles available like this. These are the pre-formatted styles available with the Excel. You can have backdrops, black background as well, and these are the different things we can really play around. Okay, so what I want to do, I want you to play around with such graphs, such charts, so that we can analyze or we can learn how these charting works in Excel. That's what the main motto. Okay, let's try to have look at some another chart. Let's try to have something like 3D area chart. It's the same data we are trying to plot, but we are trying to uh, see. So rather than these things, it's gone and build some peaks, right? And again, I can basically go and change some different style as well. There are some certain style available, and I can change it to whatever I like. I can change the titles to whatever I feel. I can change these labels also. I can increase, put down the revenue figures and all those things. If I don't want, I'll just click here and I'll just say delete. So these things are gone. Now this chart is more impressive looking and those things, and I can copy this thing and put it in my presentation, as simple as that. So that's how you present these things, right? And I'm just trying to build this thing from just couple of values, right? Could you understand this? So that's how I do it as in charting goes. Okay, let's try to understand what are the different chart can help us out, and how we can leverage these charts. And then there's a homework for you, so that at least draw 3 type of chart. Try to understand how to play around with the numbers. To give you an example, you can build a chart of, let's say, daily expense. Okay, try to jot down daily expense of a gas. So how much you're spending on a gas. Let's try to collect the data. Let's try to put something like how much you spend on gas, or how much you spend on grocery, whatever you like. And the intention here is not to get data collected from you. Intention is try to understand the chart, try how to extrapolate these things. We'll see it in our next video, how to explore this thing and how to understand the trend of these things, right? So that's how I want to understand the data, and that's how we extrapolate these things. We build something like a graph from whatever is continuing till date. So we learn from history. This is how we learn from history. Okay, let's have a look at this video.
Other topics, and now let's create which is the second chart we have, is a bar chart. All right. Now, when to create what kind of chart? I have written a complete article on this. You can go ahead and read it in the description below this video. All right. And do also like and comment. Do also like this video if you like what I have written and made, and also comment upon the content of this video. So now I'm trying to make a bar chart. I'll select my data, go to insert, go over this area and choose bar chart. And here is my bar chart. In a bar chart, I will tell you another trick. Like, you click on the chart, anywhere in the chart, and these two sections open design. You can use design section to change the design of your chart like this. In every chart, I will tell you one option. All right. So we have created 2 charts. Now let me create a line chart. This is my data. I go to insert and I go to line chart over here, and I choose a line chart. And here is my line chart. This is my line chart, and in this video, in this chart, I'll tell you how you can change the colors from here. All right, you can go ahead and work with the legends from here. Where do you want to show the legends? I want to show the legends on, say, bottom, more options. I say on top, okay? And I want to show data labels.
It's simple, like you can do it. There's no complexity in this charting. Anybody have any problem in understanding?
No,
Sir,
Uh-huh.
do we have to compare?
Could you speak louder, ma'am?
Do we need to compare something in that chart?
Yes. Basically, we're trying to compare values, right? We try to understand which is bigger, which is smaller, and we'll try to pull out inference out of it, right?
Okay.
We were trying to pull out meanings out of it. Does that make sense, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
And are my data labels, and I want to show them above. Now I'll go to the regular sites, and this is my data labels. I will insert data label. Now, what next chart we have online is a pie chart. Alright, pie chart. Here is a pie chart for us. Select the data, go to insert, go to pie, and here is your pie chart. So I can go on and pie can over here. So this is your pie chart. Now in pie chart, I'll tell you a trick. Go to format, and from here you can go ahead and choose various colors to fill the sheet. Whatever you have selected, you can format your chart from here. So what colors do you want in here? You can choose them from here. You can choose a specific color for a section or for the complete stuff. There is just one section I want. This is one section I want, I'm bothered about. Then only in this section will I change the color. Say, let me make it blue. In this section I want it to be red. In this section I'm making a Google. Google logo is green, yellow, red, and in this section I will insert green. And here is our Google. Let me put it down. We should never put somebody down. It's just a chart that we're trying to put down. Okay? And which is the next chart we have online. This is a donut chart made in a very similar manner as a pie chart. Select the data, go to insert, go to donut chart from here, and your donut chart is here. In this one, I will tell you how to copy paste the chart. You select the chart, click on copy, go to a new sheet, click, right click, and click on paste. The new chart is there. It is linked to the same data. That's going to do it. Alright, and now I believe we are moving on to interesting things. Combo charts. Combo charts are great if you have to show 2-3 kinds of information. Like I want to show the sales like we are showing over here along with the target. Alright. So how will I do that? I'll select this complete data now. Go to insert and go to combo charts over here. Alright. This is a combo chart. You can learn more about it in detail on my website, mylesson.org. So this is a combo chart. So this is the 3000 target line that you see over here. And now you can see this one is this far away from here. This one is exceeded it. This is just there, almost there. And combo chart will tell you that you can have these lines, etc. removed. Click on those lines and they get removed. Click over here and it gets removed. Just have basically clean, extremely clean. Right? This was a combo chart for you. And let's create a tree map chart, a beautiful chart which shows the content of your data in form of square and rectangular blocks, something similar to what a donut chart does in a round way. So this is my data. I select it. I go to insert. I go to recommended chart. Sorry, I go to this is my tree chart, and here is the data. I'll go ahead and place it. Now, if you try to reduce the size, it will retain its symmetry. If I change the data over here, say, if I make it 8,800, it's changed. Beautiful chart to work with. Also,
And everybody have its own favorite chart, so you can have your personal favorite too, but try to build these representation or learn these representation of a data so that our presentation will be much more effective of basically trying to understand the options we chose and the auditory fact as well.
if I go ahead and remove this layout from here, again, it will try to occupy most space in the section and organize itself. That's the beauty of this chart. And then comes the Pareto chart. Extremely difficult to make in the earlier versions of Excel, but very easy to make in this version of Excel now. So let's select our range, sales data, go to insert, and from here you can choose our Pareto chart. Here is your Pareto chart in the histogram. So it tells you which sections are corresponding with 100%, 80%, 90% of your data. For people who want to know more about Pareto charts, please visit my website, myelesson.org, and you'll understand what exactly a Pareto chart can do for you in a presentation and how extremely easy your boss will be. And now coming to our last charts, which are spark line charts and spark probability charts. Beautiful chart we have. So I want to
That's all. I think if you can just do bar chart or line chart or a pie chart, that's more than enough. And try to play around with. Let's start to try to do it here, right? Let's try to analyze something like students and marks. Let's try to do that with Excel. Come on. No, not that one. Okay, let's try to delete these things. Let's try to create another sheet. Could you see my Excel screen? Okay.
Yes, sir.
You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
I don't know why it's not coming. Okay. No, I have not stopped this share. Okay. Okay. Start and Excel. You can see Excel screen, right?
Yes.
Let's try to create another sheet. Let's try to have student roll number 1, and let's try to put some students. I have say 11 students, marks in PHY, SICS, physics, MAT, maths. Oh, come on. What the hell? What happened to my H thing? Sorry, give me a minute. Maths, then chemistry, and I have certain marks from my last exam. So I'll say these are all out of 100. So that's my 100. Sorry. Or if these are 4 subjects, let's try to put it as a 400. So all 4 makes it 400. So let's try to give it a marks. Let's say 56, 72, whatever. Now let's try to do these things. Somebody was trying to say something. Sorry, with chat. Yes. Shit.
Sir,
Yes.
how many columns should we do? Is
Come
there
again, ma'am?
how many columns we should do? Like
No. There's no what you can say. There's no limit to columns or what you can
rows?
say.
Rows.
We can have as much data as we want, or it depends on the business applications and the scenario, like what are you trying to study, and those things. So it depends on how much we are basically trying to analyze, right? So it depends on what the problem you're trying to address, right? There he has a data of around 89 a complete organization, like the sales data we've seen, right? Here we are trying to take a simpler example. Simpler example by means we are trying to analyze the data. We're trying to analyze overall how much we were trying to learn how the analysis works in a given world, right? And for that we have created this sample sheet, because I believe everybody know the students, their marks. You can jot down the names, and let's try to analyze. Let's try to present with a good chart, right? So let's try to present this with a with, let's say, pie chart. Let's try to. So I'll go to insert, I'll go to pie chart, and I'll put a pie chart. So what you've done, let's see. These are basically physics marks only. Okay, so let's see. PHYSICS, physics, MARKS. Okay, marks. Let's try to have, physics marks analyzed. Okay, as we've seen, these marks are basically, normally you can have just single. If you take two columns, and if you go to the chart, let me try to this thing. There are some charts which are normally can let you choose one set of column. There are some chart which can let you select two set of columns, right? So on and so forth. So here for a donut you can have multiple columns selected, right? So it creating a concentric circles. Now there are some charts where you can have something like these. If you select multiple columns like these as well. Okay, let's try to use 3D column chart for everybody. So I want to put a 3D column chart, and let's try to create. This is one of the most complex charting you can do, believe me. Could you see the chart here? I'll just I'll delete these charts. I like pie chart personally, but pie chart won't allow you to have multiple columns analyzed or multiple type of data analyzed at a given time. So I have to use another chart. So what I have used something like then there are certain styles available. So these are the things, right? So I can rename these things again, because this is student 1, student 2. So how he is performed subject wise, and these are the total marks. So I'll just skip the total marks thing. So I have to select again, and I can let's create this chart again. Okay, so what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to select these database. Till this time I go to insert, I'm going to the chart insertion, and I'm trying to have 3D column chart. Okay, and then I'm going to use something like this one, because I like this thing, right? And then I can give the colors, I can filter, I can these are like oh man, let me try it again. So I'm going to insert, I'm clicking here, I'm choosing 3D chart, and in 3D chart I'm going with whatever style I like. Okay, I'm trying to maximize this so that you can see better. So this is student 1. So if I have name like I can have these name reflected here, right? And these are the different type of okay, but I couldn't see the what you can say previous this thing. So I need to change the style. So I'll go here. I can do something like these as well, right? So there are 3D. Okay, now this I believe really great. This is not a 3D, but I'm trying to analyze students' marks. So this student 9 is doing poor in physics. Ravindra is doing good in physics. Student 4 is doing good in physics, and student 7 is also doing good in physics. And if I look at yellow is my English. Almost everybody did good in English. So these type of analysis I can do in terms of understanding the exam results. Like you can do similar things with your household expenses. You can do similar things if you have different income stream. You can also analyze those income stream by this chart. Does that make sense, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So the homework is basically try to build these, some sort of chart, and we'll try to understand the inference. You can pull it out. Okay, this is a simple thing which I did, right? I can did it in a few minutes. I've completed these charts. Even I can choose whatever chart. If I want to have a similar scenario, like I can choose whatever chart I want to do. Let's try to guide you again. Then I can use these type of chart as well, right? These type of chart. There are various chart available. try to play around, try to use the chart whatever you feel more or nearer to you, or see, these are the different type of charts. These are really difficult charts. These charts are normally used by the stockbrokers and everything. So those kind of charts. So let's not it's a bit difficult, but you can have these type of chart as well. See, this is a different kind of chart. Here we have a backdrop of total marks and how he did in terms of each and every leveled subject wise. So that's how it's got depicted, but this is a bit confusing. I think our bar 3D bar chart is more than enough for you. So let's try to build a chart, and let's try to present it in the next session so that we can go in depth, right? This is a need for an analyst because we need to pull out inference after the data we collected. We do some sort of R&D, we do some sort of research, and we need to present this research with the help of these charts and pivot tables. Okay, let's go step by step. Let's try to learn charts only, right? So next session, please prepare one simple chart, whatever you believe is correct, and try to explain it. That's what the homework is. So could we do that? Any difficulty in doing that?
No, sir. Right now it looks very easy, but don't know
Sure.
where we start.
No, it's easy, ma'am. Please don't worry. It's really easy. Just try to decide what you want to, create, and try couple of times. Okay, and then we can discuss it along. Means there should be any challenge in creating charts at least. We pivot table I can understand, and we'll have a look at pivot tables if there's a need. So but these are something like smaller step which we must learn. So that's why I'm saying let's try to do it. You can have something like household expense, you can have something like grocery bills, analyze with these. Okay, try to choose your options, whatever you want to do it. Any confusion at this moment? Any anybody have any question for me? Okay, let's stop here today. I think we reduced. Okay, no problem. So, and I'll share the links of last and this recording within couple of hours, so you can go through it. So if you have any difficulty in creating it, you can take example from these sessions also. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, and have a good night. Take care. Happy Makar Sankranti to you.
Happy
Bye.
Makar Sankranti to you too.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye. Okay, there was a chat, I believe, right? Let me